So, hello everyone. We'll just wait for some 5 more minutes so that everyone can join the session. Hello Srinivas and Aditya. So, we are just waiting for some more people to join. Hello Arun. Guys, am I audible to you? If I am audible, so you can write a hi in the chat, whoever are watching. So, hello everyone. Now it's already 10:10 a.m. So, I think we should start. So, hello everyone. Today's session is all about Introduction to Cloud 101, and today we will just scratch the surface of cloud computing. We will know about the fundamentals of cloud, and so we have Aditi Mam with us, who is currently working as a member of technical staff at VMware Cloud. Today she will discuss about the fundamentals of cloud computing, difference between virtualization and cloud computing, and some core AWS services. She will also discuss about the skills required for the career in this field, as most of you have asked in the form that what are the skills required for so that you can take your career in this field, make your career in this field. She will discuss about all these things. And guys, if you have any doubts or queries, you can put it in the comment section. And don't worry, we will have a separate Q&A session at the end for you all. So now I would like to welcome Aditi ma'am so that she can further carry out the session. So hello Aditi ma'am.
Hi, Arvind.
So
Yeah,
ma'am, now you're live.
yeah. Thanks for the introduction. And hi, everyone. I cannot see the comments here. Okay.
It will in the
Yeah, yeah,
right side corner. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I got it. So, hello, everyone. And Arvind has already introduced me. So, just I would like to give a quick introduction of myself. So, I'm Aditi Thakur, and I'm currently working as member of technical staff at VMware, and my team is VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. I had also previously interned with the same company and in the same team. And I am a 2020 batch computer science engineering from LNCT Bhopal. And yeah, that's pretty much. We will start the session now. So as Arvind said, it is a basic introduction to cloud computing with some demo of the some of the core AWS services. And I see Nikita has said that she is an absolute beginner. So Nikita, I will try to keep these things simpler. And okay, so just let's start. I have a very small PPT. I will share it. It just has the titles, the topics that we are going to discuss. So it would be easier for you guys to have the reference what we are talking about. Um, yeah. So cloud computing. So if you just you're able to see my screen, right? Arvind, is my screen visible?
Yes ma'am,
Hello.
your screen is visible to all.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see here, right? I have this small cartoon here, which is saying like which is just asking a question like now why we are expecting so much from cloud, right? And this is something that is like a very valid question because people these days are talking a lot about cloud, are expecting a lot of things from cloud. And why is that? So we would answer that thing today, but we will first try to understand what cloud computing is, and what are the
I think there is a network issue with the ma'am. Just wait for 5 minutes. We will resolve this issue.
problems and what problems or what things you solve by using someone else's computer, right? Because we know everyone has their own computer these days. Why would I use someone else's computer? So the answer here is fairly simple, which is why we are using someone else's computer is either we don't have it, or even if we have it, my system is not sufficient for what I want to achieve out of it. So maybe I have a very good system, I have 32 GB of RAM, I have very good system, but still my requirement is much more than that. My storage requirement or my processing requirement is much more than what I have. So what I can do is I can switch to cloud. And when I say that I can switch to cloud, is I'm just switching to someone else's system, which is provided to us by some other vendor, and we are paying for that. And the model through which we are paying is called as pay as you go. So when I say pay as you go, it simply means that you're only paying for the services that you are using and for the amount of time you are using it. So if I'm using a particular service for say just 2 hours, I will be paying for only 2 hours. And these services are provided to us through internet, so I can access these services which is provided by some third party vendor, or which can even be uh, my own my own managed service. When I say my own managed service, I'm talking about private cloud that I will discuss separately. But it can be provided by some third party vendor, or it can even be managed by me, or it can even be be on my on premise but managed by someone else. So these are some types of deployment that we do in cloud computing. We will see that in later topics. But we are just paying for what we are using, and we are accessing these services over the internet. So I will give you an example now. So we all know, right? No one these days have music stored on their own mobile or movies stored in their own mobile. We all use Netflix or Ghana or such applications for music and movies. So these applications are very much known to us. So can you think about the storage requirements these companies would have? I mean, I don't think they would, if they have one system, would they be able to like store all the data, all the videos, all the movies in that? No, they will require, and they don't even know how much they will require, like how much storage they do require. It might be possible that after some days or after some months, the requirement increases, or it might even decreases, right? Depending upon how people are using Netflix or Ghana or anything or any such application. So if you see the trend, we what we can see is our needs are so very flexible. We don't know that what we are using today is what we will be using tomorrow. It might be possible that if I'm using 2 servers today, I may need 4 servers tomorrow, or even one server tomorrow. So these kinds of situations where we our needs are very very flexible, and we need to pop up with that flexibility. We need to switch to cloud computing, because just suppose Netflix is managing their own data. So if you even read about Netflix, right, there is a case study where they tried to have their own data center, and they tried to keep all their data in their own data center, but would they have found it very difficult to manage those data centers. And even this is not their prime business, right? Their prime business is what live streaming is what they are doing. So they are spending you know some other efforts, some another level of efforts for just managing the data centers, which they can even rent out, or they can even use through cloud. So now, if you see, Netflix has switched to cloud, and there are many such examples for like large companies who have switched to cloud because of this ease, that how they are getting what they need at a very at just few clicks. You just go to the control plane. When I say control plane, you must have seen the UI, right, through which we accesses the services of any public cloud. And if you have not, we have a session on AWS, so where there we can see it. But if you go there, you will just see that there's, there are certain services, and you can click on them, and you can simply, deploy your own server. You can use storage, you can use database, and many such services, and you are just paying for what you are using, for how many hours or how many time you are using. So if I talk about the pros of cloud computing, there are so many pros of cloud computing, and that is why we are expecting so much out of cloud computing, because it is providing us with so much functionalities. And when I say it is providing us with so much functionalities, but at the same time the customer needs are like forever growing, right? So if they are getting X as a service, they might want Y as a service, um, few years later or few months later, depending upon their requirements, right? So that is why in AWS, right, we have for around 175 services. I'm not sure about the numbers, but we have like huge number of services there, and same for any other cloud public cloud platforms like Azure or GCP. So yeah, we are actually expecting so much from cloud computing. And just to summarize, the reason for switching to cloud computing is it is very cost effective, right? So the first point is cost effective, because every company tries to, you know achieve their goal by having a certain amount of budget, right? They don't want to spend in things that are of no use for them, right? So they just want to rent them, use them for however duration they want, and they can even release it, right? So at a later, if I have deployed 4 servers, right, on cloud, and later on I find that okay, one of them is not used, I can simply deprovision it, and I can go for 3 servers, right? And at a later point of time, if I find that I need more servers, I can go and I can quickly provision more servers for myself. So this kind of flexibility is what the companies are demanding today. And the cost effectiveness, when I talk about, is you don't have to pay the upfront price, right? The upfront cost. When I say the upfront cost, I simply means that if you say you are going and you're deploying your own data center, right? I won't go for any cloud, I will deploy my own data center. Think about how much cost you will pay for just setting up that data center, right? You will first order hardwares, right, from any hardware company, and then you will need engineers, right? If you're not a technical person, you will need engineers to kind of plug in the cables and do all the connectivities and get your data center uh, ready, right? So you're paying lots of upfront costs just for the settlement of your server, your data center. And if you're going to cloud, right, if you're switching to cloud, they are not asking you, okay, I'm going to plug in cables for you, then so just pay me this much amount for that. They're just saying that, okay, you are using one virtual machine, you are using one virtual server, I will ask you for only that much amount, right? So there is no upfront cost associated with cloud. There is lots of flexibility that I have already talked about. There is a scalability, right? There is a concept of scale up and scale down. If you can relate, right, we have lots of online shopping sites, and they periodically have some sales going on. And meanwhile, obviously, in the sale, they will have more customers logging in concurrently than they had on a usual day. So they might want more servers for that particular 2 days sale or 3 days sale. And at a later point of time, they may want to deprovision those servers because they may not have that much traffic on a usual day. So this kind of scalability, where I can just scale up and scale down based on my requirement, is something cloud uh, is actually why people are switching to cloud. And there are lots of cons, as I talked, like this lots of cost savings, there's flexibility, scalability, and obviously there is an ease of management, because we are not managing the entire hardware. It is just something that we are getting at few clicks, right? And yeah, obviously there are certain cons also, and one of the biggest issue that people keep talking about when it comes to cloud is, what about my security? Like, is my data breached, or how can I trust that the vendor whom I am taking the service from is not doing any kind of breach with my data? So this is a very valid question, and if I talk that the companies have certain rules, like not rules actually, agreement, right, which we call as SLA, right, service level agreement. So whenever you are switching to any vendor, they have a proper SLA with customer, and in that SLA, that is service level agreement, you can read everything, that what is the availability of my whatever services I am using, is it available like 100%? So no vendor will say that your service will be up and running for 100% of time, because but yeah, we have 99.99% of SLAs for most of the vendors. So they cannot say 100%, because they might be very, they might be things like a lot of things, like they might be things like disaster, and the entire data center may get destroyed, and they might have to do the migration, switching to another. It may take some time, right? Although it is a very less time, but then too it is not 100% of availability, right? And the other thing is, you also get to know about the privacy. Are they accessing my data or not? So these are certain things that is there, but still security is a major concern, and that is why we have other kinds of deployment too, where we don't say, okay, go to the public cloud or go to some third party vendor. Just have your own cloud. When we say own cloud, I will talk about it later, but yeah, it is like you are managing it, or it is on your location, right? So yeah, I will just switch to another slide if I don't have any question. Do you people have any questions?
Manan Jain have a question.
Yeah, Netflix and Amazon Prime Video are using same cloud service. Then why for streaming data consumption on Amazon Prime is more than Netflix? Okay, so data consumption is more on Amazon Prime, is it? I never noticed what is the data consumption, but when it comes to data consumption, right, there are lots of factors involved. Like what is the quality of the video you're watching, or like what is the quality of video that they are providing, and what are the, in the background, how they are actually streaming the data. That is very important. So these are some things which are associated, and okay, so yeah, I don't
Net,
see any question. Okay, I have involved in
guys,
OpenStack cloud computing in my college. Will there be any opportunities for me in that field? Because all I hear in the market is AWS and Azure. So it is never like, okay, I am good at AWS, so I will be having more opportunities in the market. The only, see, cloud computing is same, right? The entire concept of cloud is same. Whether you are using it on AWS or Azure or GCP, it does not matter, right? Because what you are doing is you're using certain services. The main thing in cloud computing is understanding, right, that how cloud computing actually works. Why is it used for? What are the advantages as well as disadvantages associated? So these are some of the things that, and how these entire things are managed in the background. So these are the things which you need to focus more on, and what vendor cloud you are using or you have been learning does not matter, because it's just a matter of like a few days that you can switch over, right? If you're using AWS, you can easily switch to Azure and other, right? So that is not an issue. Okay. Now I will talk about cloud delivery models, right? So when I say cloud delivery models, it is basically what are the services that you're taking from the cloud. So it might be possible that I just want infrastructure from the cloud, and I want to build everything from the scratch, right? I want to have my own operating system. I have my own customized operating system, and I only want to run that on top of that infrastructure. So I won't be telling my cloud vendor that please don't give me operating system, just give me the bare metal hardware, and I will be the one who would be deploying everything on top of that. So that kind of delivery model is what we call as IaaS. So when I say IaaS, so it is basically infrastructure as a service. So if you see in this diagram, we can see that the entire hardware related things, right? Virtualization, the servers, the storage, the networking, the entire linking between them is managed by the vendor from whom we are taking the service, and everything on top of that, we just have the bare metal from the vendor. And what we do when we just have a bare metal system, we install the operating system, right? That is the first step. So from there, it is our responsibility. We are the one who are managing the operating system. We are managing the all the middleware for the communication, for the runtime, our own runtime environments, whatever, if there is some specific runtime environment that I want, that I can deploy on top of that. My own applications, whatever I want to use, my own frameworks, technologies, everything would be customized by me, everything would be managed by me, but the bare metal hardware is provided by the cloud vendor. And when I say the hardware is provided by the cloud vendor, it is a lot of flexibility, because when I say, okay, I am just talking about servers. So if I say I want to have two more servers, I can easily go and uh, two more servers get deployed. And if I want like some more storage for my uh, application, I can also do that. I can just say, okay, just attach additional storage to my this system, and they will manage that. And if there is some specific requirement for like these if there is a specific requirement for the networking, and when I say for the networking, it is still like you can like suppose I have my own organization, and I have a certain subnet that I'm using within that organization, and I want a new infrastructure, a new server to use the same subnet, or to be in the same subnet that I have the other servers in. So I can even specify that okay, this is my subnet, this is my IP that I want to give to this machine, and they will take care of that. They will provide those servers and those subnets to your machine. So even when I say that these things are kind of managed by the vendor, I simply means that the entire management is done by them, but you can still give your choices of the, like I said, right, subnet, IPs, and things like that. And when you want to expand, you can simply say, okay, I want to expand my storage or my server, so you can go and deploy it, right? So this is the entire concept. When I say infrastructure as a service, is the entire infrastructure on top of which I'm going to run my application is managed by some cloud vendor. And I am the one who is just concerned about the other things except the hardware. The other delivery model is PaaS, that we call as PaaS, that is platform as a service, right? When I say platform as a service, it basically involves everything till the runtime environment, right? So you will not get any customization over operating system, over middleware, over runtime environment. Everything will be pre-configured. So yeah, I will show that you in later session when we deploy the EC2 instance, right? In AWS, you get an option where you can choose like what operating system you want to install on top of that. And once you choose that, that entire thing is pre-configured in your server. So that is like I'm getting an entire platform as a service. And these are like there are some like other things, like if I want my server with say Nginx server is installed on top of it, so I want to use my server for some load balancing purpose or some web related purpose, and I want it pre-configured with Nginx or say LAMP, that is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So I can even give those configurations and get those runtime environments in my servers. The other thing and the most important thing is SaaS. When I say most important thing is because most of the companies these days are completely switching to SaaS, that is software as a service. And why they are switching to SaaS is because earlier what used to happen is, okay, I have rented out you this hardware and you have paid one time cost for it, and then you are done, right? We are done. You don't need to pay like any other cost. But now everything is subscription based, so you are not paying like one time cost for anything that you are using, rather you are using everything on a subscription basis. If you're using a hardware or an application or anything, you are using that on a subscription basis. So this is one thing that is very common. You must have noticed, like most of the applications these days are based on this model only. You never pay like entire amount for Netflix or Amazon Prime. You always, subscribe for those services, right? So this is the most important service delivery model. And here, if you see, you don't have any control. When I say you don't have any control, it's just you are getting application, right? And you are consuming that application. You are getting Netflix, you are using Netflix, you don't know what is happening in the background of Netflix. So you don't have anything to like have customization on. The another example can be Dropbox, right? You are using Dropbox, you are storing your data there, you are using it for multiple purposes, but you don't know that how those things are managed. You don't know what you are getting is just an application, and you are using it for your own purposes. And this is the most common service model, and this is the most so common, and you must have seen it for most of your you must have been very familiar with this, because it is something that every company these days are switching over to. And yeah, the another important point here is anything as a service. When I say these are the three prime delivery models, but the cloud delivery models are not limited to just these three. And when I say that, I mean there are lots of other delivery models, and like unlimited numbers, right? I mean, I cannot call out everything that is available as a service these days, because everything is available as a service. If you talk about your local compute, right, that is also available as a service. If you talk about database, that is available as a service. If you talk about desktop, right, desktop as a service, that is also available. You can use desktop that is like not in your system. You can just log into someone else some other system, and you can use that desktop as simply as a service. And there's disaster recovery as a service, and there are lots of things, right? So if you go and if you will Google, like you will see like many things are there, which is there's analytics as a service, there's machine learning as a service, lots of things are there. So because the customer needs are growing, so is the value of this X. So this is completely proportional to what the customers are demanding to. So if say they are like 100 services today, it might be possible that they will be 150 services tomorrow, because these needs are growing every day. Okay, I will again switch to questions if anyone has.
Yeah, so Aditya and Srinivas have asked a similar question, that which cloud Aditya has asked which cloud service is easy to start with, and Srinivas has asked
Mhm.
which is the best cloud technology.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah. People ask about job opportunities in this field, or should I switch to AWS?
Yeah,
Should I learn cloud networks before starting? Yeah. So Prahars, I will take your question first. So you need to have some basic idea of operating system, as well as computer networks. If I say the four things, then you should have that knowledge, because when I talk in terms of cloud, right, the everything is somehow managed by the operating system, right? Even if we are doing some kind of abstraction in the hardware, right, that is somewhere also related to the operating system. And computer networks is something you should be not much, but like you should be aware of the basic concepts like how IP works, right? How subnet thing is there, what is like VPN, what is VPC. So these are some common terms which will be used if you switch to cloud computing domain. So these will be something that you need to have the basic knowledge of computer networks there to understand these concepts. So yeah, it is necessary, and I think it is a part of the core CS subject. So you should have a basic understanding over there. And if I talk about the best cloud computing technology, right? If you will Google, you will see that AWS is leading right now. It is simply data, but there is nothing like there is. If you work in Microsoft, right, they will use Azure. If you work in Amazon, they will be using AWS. So as an engineer, right, as a technical person, you should be thinking about knowing the skills and switching between the skills. So when I say switching between the skills, you should be familiar with the basic concepts, because that is what is going to help you when you go and you will say, okay, what if I work in Red Hat? They will be using OpenStack, and if I will be working in IBM, they will be working on their own cloud, right? So the companies have their own, kind of customized framework, kind of customized cloud. Everything is their own when you work in a company. So there's nothing like if you know one thing, it will be beneficial, and you will definitely be, able to, ace that field. It is never like that. So always be, familiar with the concept so that you can easily switch over. Okay. You should not need to switch for any specific cloud vendor just for the sake of getting a job, right? And you should not be learning cloud computing either for just for the purpose of there is lots of demand, or I need to go for this particular company, so should I go for cloud? No. If you have a particular interest in that field and if you want to explore that field, then only go to that field, because it's never like if you are working in some other domain, machine learning or data science or any other domain. There are lots of opportunities out there. So do the thing that you are best at, right? Rather than doing something just because there are lots of opportunities there and it is a buzzword today. So just go for it. So it will never work like that, because the industry does not work like that. Because when you come in the company, right, you understand how much important it is to, get your concepts clear, get your core things, your fundamentals clear, and also to switch over, right? When you say switch over, you have to switch over multiple technologies. They will not say, okay, you know AWS, you will be working only on AWS. It is never going to happen. So, just I will just say, don't go for any specific field just for the sake that there are lots of job opportunities out there. Yeah. I am a web developer. Will learning cloud help me? Obviously, right. Cloud is something that is used by like lots of people. Like when I say, if I only talk about in terms of web development, obviously you need some kind of deployment, right? That deployment is easily available on cloud, right? And that deployment is easily managed by cloud. So even if you see, right, you must, if you're a web developer, you must have heard of, DigitalOcean or Heroku or these kind of things. So they are all providing hosting over cloud. So yeah, knowing the fundamentals would help you there. Um, what are some of the popularly used cloud computing services? Okay, we will see that. We will see that. And when you say what are some of the popularly used cloud computing services, it again depends upon you, what you want from the cloud, right? Do you want a server, you want a storage, you want a database? It is your need, right? It's not like cloud is telling you, okay, please use this service or use that service. You are choosing that, and you are choosing that because of your need. Okay. Now I will switch to cloud deployment models. And this is what I was talking about. We have different kind of deployment models available in cloud. There is something public cloud, which most of you are aware of because you're talking about AWS, Azure, and things. So you know what public cloud is. It is basically a cloud that is provided by a third-party vendor, and they are providing certain services over a control plane, over a UI that is easy to, that is a user-friendly UI, and you can just deploy whatever services you want, and you can use them as you want, right? So it is a much simpler cloud computing model, because you don't need to worry about how what things are going in the background and how they are managing it. So it is simply, you go there, you want the service, you get that service, you use it as per your requirement, and then you can release that service, and you're just paying for whatever you are using. So it is just an very easy and very widely used deployment model. There is something that I will talk a little more about, that is private cloud, right? So where when you're telling private cloud, what is one thing is, what is the need of private cloud? Why I would go for a private cloud that is completely owned and managed, and I have to do the entire thing, right? I have to do the troubleshooting, the upgrading, the patching, everything will be done by me. So why should I not go for a public cloud? The one con that I have stated earlier is security, and that is one of the major reasons why people are switching to private cloud. The other important reason is bandwidth and latency. When I say bandwidth and latency, obviously if you are using public cloud, you're getting the data from some server which might be in some other geographical location than what you are in. So there is some kind of, though there is a very less latency, but there's still some latency there. And if you want like a very high speed compute or high speed other services available, so you can switch to private cloud. But the prime reason is again security, and that is why, if you say, right, various government agencies, the banks, the DRDO, ISRO, they all have their own private cloud, because they think their data should be more secured, and they are managing their private cloud. So there is another concept also involved in private cloud, which is a very new concept, that okay, you have your server on your premise, but you don't need to manage it. When I say you don't need to manage it, is because I am the one who is managing that entire service, that entire hardware for you. So there is kind of a word which is LCM, like the LCM stands for life cycle management. So whenever we have something like a cloud or an infrastructure for cloud, we have to do a proper life cycle management of that infrastructure, that server, right? We have to do the patching, the upgrade, the monitoring, the troubleshooting. And if the customer is the one who is managing that infrastructure, he or she has to do it themselves, right? So there is no one else who is going to do that. But there is a model where you can have your private cloud, but the entire management thing is managed by some other vendor. So VMware is one of the vendor that is doing that, and so it is basically like the entire whatever the what we call as the the pain areas, right? Those are kind of removed when we say that okay, your data is safe, also your data is on premise, also it is at your location, it is at your data center, but you don't need to do anything. You again have one control plane where you can see your services, whatever you have opted for, whatever you have deployed on your premise, and then you can just use it as a public cloud, right? You don't need to manage it. So that is one of the very new concept, and it is coming up, and lots of companies are working on it. And yeah, the other important deployment model is hybrid cloud. So again, there is a purpose of hybrid cloud, which is basically there is a very common scenario that there are some customers who are already having their data center on their location, and now they are planning to switch to some public cloud. So but they cannot completely remove that data center that they already had, right? So there is a kind of intersection, right? With I have my private cloud also, my own data center also, and now I want to switch to some public cloud also. But I want to manage the entire thing through one control plane, through one, user interface, and that is where the hybrid cloud comes up, right? So it says, okay, no problem, you have your own data center, and you can use our services, which is on a public cloud, and you can do the entire stuff between these two. You can migrate your data between your on-premise to your cloud, or vice versa, and you can manage the entire infrastructure as it is just one. You will not see any segregation that, okay, this is my private cloud, this is my public cloud. So that is the entire purpose of having a hybrid cloud, or opting for a hybrid cloud deployment model, is because you just want to have a summation of both your private deployment as well as whatever you are going to deploy on the public cloud. And before switching to the other topic, I will take some questions again. Is there any plus point of cloud for Java developer? Okay. Okay. Open source cloud computing platform databases. Okay. What do you mean by open source cloud computing platform databases? I mean, can you please clarify your question? I am not sure what you're asking about. So, yeah, so what is the role of a cloud developer? So, yeah, I will talk about my role. Basically, I'm working as a backend, developer for the cloud services that my team is providing. And if I talk about my role, it is pretty much writing codes. Right? I don't have a proper interaction with what actually what the customers are using, how they're using the services, and but what I need to know is how the things work, right? How the cloud deployment works, how the user, how the entire workflow is, because that is what we use when we write codes as a developer, right? We need to know, okay, how the customer onboarding is done, how the customer first starts, how the login process is done, how when the customer opts for a particular service, what should happen in the background and things like that. So I will come to that when I will talk about managing cloud services from backend. So I will come to that. But as a cloud server developer, when you say developer, your prime purpose is understanding your entire architecture, understanding your workflows, and then writing codes for it. So that is the entire purpose of a developer. Okay. So foundations of cloud computing, right? This is a kind of a trickier concept for people who are like completely beginners. Uh, but for people who are already familiar with virtualization, it would be good. But I would just try to associate it with what learning you have. So you people might have deployed a virtual machine at some point in your time. So if I say you must have used something like VMware Workstation, or there's something from Oracle also, probably VirtualBox, right? So if you have used these softwares, you know what a VM is, what a virtual machine is. You might not know the internal intricacies, but you are at least familiar with using a virtual machine. So when I say a virtual machine, it simply means that it is a system, it is a machine that is not on directly on your physical host or your physical hardware. So what is the entire concept of virtualization is basically that used to happen in a very traditional model is we have one hardware, we have one operating system running on top of it, and then have our applications running. So what might be the cons in that case? It might be possible that I have a system of very good hardware specifications, but I'm not using my system properly, right? I have a system of say 32 GB of RAM, but that is not used, right? I have a system with like X CPUs, but I'm not using it. So there is some at some point, right? There is the wastage of the hardware. Just to avoid that wastage and just to increase the optimum utilization of our hardware, there is a concept of virtualization. So what we do in virtualization is we have our hardware, we have our operating system. Again, when I say operating system, there is a concept of virtualization. There is a concept in virtualization that is hypervisors. So basically, virtualization is nothing but we are using the same physical hardware or the same physical hosts for running multiple machines rather than one. Right? If you say in the first case, we are just using one operating system and we have our applications on top of that. But in the other case, if you see, we have multiple operating systems, right? So we have like six machines in the second case, and each machines are completely independent from each other. So we can use them as an independent servers, as an independent machine. So how we are enabling this virtualization is by using a software layer that is hypervisor. And again, the hypervisor is something that comes between the virtual machine and the operating system. So basically, hypervisor is a layer on top of the operating system. If it is a second type of hypervisor, so when I say if it is second type of hypervisor, so there are two kinds of hypervisor. The first one is a bare metal hypervisor. When I say, okay, you don't need any operating system installed on your hardware, you just take your bare metal, your hardware, completely raw. You just install the bare metal hypervisor on top of it, and then you can deploy your virtual machines on top of that. So here we are not relying on any of the host operating system. So we are saying, okay, I don't need anything, I just need one rack, one server, and I will deploy my hypervisor layer on top of it, and then I will use it by having multiple VMs. But when I say the second type of hypervisor, it is the type 2 hypervisor, where we have this host operating system, and then we have this hypervisor layer on top of the host operating system. So it is kind of similar, but since if you go into the performance things, right, here we have one host operating system, then we have hypervisors, and for interacting with the underlying kernel, the hypervisor has to cannot directly call the system cannot directly do the system calls. It has to involve the host operating system. So there are some performance issues in the type 2 hypervisor. So that is why the type 2 hypervisors are not used in industries. Most of the industries are using the type 1 hypervisor because it is very much optimum in performance. So yeah, so if that is clear, so we have hypervisor layer, and it is the responsibility of the hypervisor layer to abstract the physical hardware. So the virtual machines running never gets to know that they are not running alone. So they never gets to know, okay, there are other virtual machines that are running along with me. So it is always like you are the one who is running on top of it, and every virtual machine has this assumption that they are the only one machine running on the hardware. So this kind of segregation is provided by the hypervisor layer. And so why we are doing virtualization is simply because we want our entire hardware to be used in a much more optimum manner, and we want to increase the resources utilization. So there is no purpose of wasting resources. Like when we switch to data centers, there is one server of like very huge capacity, and if we are just deploying one machine on top of that server, the entire capacity is of no use. So that is why the virtualization comes into play. So I think I will take questions here because thank you. Okay, so I don't see any questions. So everyone is clear about virtualization.
Yeah, there are no questions in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So I will move ahead then. Okay. I will talk a little bit more about virtualization because the next section is the demo section of AWS services. So yeah, so this is all about virtualization where when we use the same physical hardware, and then we did also like see when I say VM, right? The VM can be deployed on one server, right? But suppose if that server is somewhere down, they we need to have that flexibility where we can switch that VM to some other running server. So this entire thing, or this entire flexibility, this entire ease of management is provided by some common management portal or a common control plane that we have for most of the virtualization software. So they have this management console associated, and we can just use that management console to see what VM is running on, what hardware, and is that hardware up and running or not. So these are the things that we need to take care when we are using virtualization. So yeah, I think we are good to go for the live AWS demo session. Okay. So I'm again asking, do anyone has any question on virtualization? So I can take it here only, or I can move to AWS. Okay. So do people have logged into AWS before? Any answers? Or do you know how to create an account on AWS? Okay. I will just tell you the steps. So the steps are fairly simple. Like you create an account for any other application, you just go to the AWS and you just do a create new account. There are certain fields that you need to fill in, like your name, your some basic details, like. And then there is one important point that is uh, you need to add your debit or credit card there. So when I say you need to add, even if you are using the free tier version of AWS, you need to add that card, but be assured that nothing will be deducted from your card unless you exceed the limit that is given in the free tier account. So if I can show you, uh, um, this is not a free tier account that I'm using currently, but I can just show you where you can see your bills. If you go to the AWS console, so this, let me just go back again. This is the entire management console that you see when you log into the AWS. So this is what you get to see. This is called as the management, the control plane that I was talking about. This is how the control plane looks in any of the public cloud. So this is where you can see all the services that are provided by those vendors. So if you scroll down here, you will see all the services that are provided by AWS. And yeah, first thing first, I will show you how to see the bills because that is an important point. If you go to your billing dashboard, you will see there is an entire calculation of your bills, that what services you are running and what service is costing you how much. So if you see here, right, these are the services that are being used currently by this account, and this is what they are costing, right? So whatever, how much services you will use, your calculation will be done on that basis. But if you are using the free tier version, I will say it will not cost you anything unless you will exceed the limit. Be sure when you will log into your AWS portal, you will get proper, on this page only you will get proper notification that if you are exceeding the limit or not, and if that is the case, please stop using certain services. Even if that is not the case, whenever you are not using a service, please stop it and try to terminate unnecessary instances or anything that is not being used, because that will cost you money. Anything that you will use on a public cloud domain will cost you money. So be assured of that point and be, but if you are within the limits, you will not be deducted any amount from your card. So don't be afraid of putting your card there. And be sure you check this portal again and again, this dashboard again and again, because you will see what are the things here. I mean, what are the costings? How are the costings done here? So yeah, so in AWS, before starting anything, I will like to talk about some basic things that is basically the two most used words in AWS is basically the reason and the availability zones. So I will try to cover what is the reason and what is the availability zone. So if you can see here, right, we get a lots of options here where we can choose what reason we want to be in. So when I say reason, what does it actually mean? So it actually means the geographical location, the exact geographical location where your data is being stored, where your data center is, on which your data center is going to be stored, or where your data is going to be stored, right? So this there are various reasons, and if I talk about India, we only have one reason, that is in Mumbai. But they are like, if you can see, right, there are multiple reasons available. And one thing is also important, that not all reasons have all the services. So it might be possible that though it is very rare, because all the core services are available in all the reasons, but it might be some reasons that are not having that services. And every time a new service being is being deployed on AWS, it first comes in the US East zone. That is the US East region. Any new service first comes to US East, because that is the reason where they do all the testing and all. So that is the reason where you will get all the latest services that are there for AWS. And okay, so that is about reasons. And within the reason, we have something called availability zones. So when I say availability zones, is the reason is basically your geographical location. It might be Mumbai, it might be US East, US West, whatever it is. It is your geographical location. And within that geographical location, your data centers are never put at one place, because when I talked about disaster, right? So disaster recovery is one of the key points in like accomplishing the SLA. So every cloud vendor, every public cloud vendor has a certain SLA with their customers, and they try to achieve that SLA. It is a complete requirement to achieve everything that is mentioned on the SLA, service level agreement. So they never ever puts all the data in just one data center, because there might be case my entire data center. There might be fire in my data center, and all my servers will get destroyed. Then how will I get the data? So in any region, we have at least two availability zones that we call as AZs in short. So we at least have two AZs for backup and this disaster recovery things. And there might be more, right? There are certain reasons where they have 3 4 AZs, but two is the minimum requirement, because you have to keep that SLA in mind, and you have to do that. So that's why two is a basic requirement. And there is another thing that is known as edge locations. So when I say edge location, it simply means it is not a reason, it is basically a edge location. It is a location that is directly connected to some AWS data center, right? And why would I have a location that is directly connected to AWS data center? Because it might be possible, like I am living in, say, some, I am in India, right? I have one reason that is in Mumbai, but there might be some countries which does not has any reason. And even if I have one reason in Mumbai, it might be a lots of latency when I want a very high, high speed, because my data will travel from here to Mumbai, and I will get the fetch the data, and I will retrieve the data. So to avoid those latencies, what AWS does is they have one, if they are having just one reason, they will make sure that they are having multiple edge locations. So these edge locations are kind of, are kind of working like, I would say, cache, right? So when I talk about cache, so what caches does is basically it has all the frequently accessed data. So similarly, we have edge locations, and in edge location, basically that edge location has the direct connectivity with the AWS data center. And if I have, if I have say used one service of AWS, and it might be a possibility that I might use that service again. So there is a kind of, data transfer between the data center and the edge location, and just for the sake of avoiding latency, for the frequently used data, my data will not directly come from the data center. It might come from the edge locations, which is, much which is much less far than the actual reason. So yeah, that is all about the basic terminologies. We can get started with the services if you don't have any questions. Okay. How can we
Jatin
best
Party
secure
has a
data?
question.
Yeah, what's the question? I can't see. Yeah, yeah.
How
How
can
can
we
we
secure
do
data?
best secure data for transportation to the cloud? So you want to secure the channel through which the data is transferred. So basically, this entire fiber through which the data is transferred is not laid by you, right? So it is a cloud vendor who is doing this entire thing, right? So the AWS itself has their communication around the world. They have a global infrastructure, and they have done the entire, the communication channels are laid by them. So the entire, they take care of like how the transfer of data will be. And if you are more concerned about the security, that I don't want to like transfer the data to a public cloud, that is where you need to think about private clouds and other things that I've discussed, right? So this transfer of data is not managed by us, because they have their own you know fiber, and they manage it. The the cloud vendor manages it. So that is not something our control. Even when we are using the the mobile networks, right? Do we care about like where the data is coming from, right? We cannot handle, we have network issues, but can we go and see, okay, where the problem is? No, we cannot, because these are the things which are handled by the vendors, right? So we actually do not, as a customer, do not have any access to how they are managing the things, what channels they are using, and how the actual data, whether they are using a dedicated cable or a shared cable, this entire thing is managed by them. So yeah, if you like are very much secured about your data transfer, you can opt for something known as a your dedicated host. So when you say the dedicated host, your space will not be shared by some other host. So in that case, your data will be secured in terms of like, you would not be like any, you would not be having fear that my data might get you know used by some other host. They might be inter-process communication and things like that. So just to be sure, you can use that. That is something in your hands. But if I talk about completely about the communication channel, there is no way to control that. Yeah. So let's go to the services. I will start with EC2 first. I think the session is going to be long because we have lots of things to cover. And this demo thing will take some time. So EC2 instance is basically just a virtual server, right? We have talked about virtualization, we have talked about virtual machine. So it is much similar like a virtual machine, but it is on the AWS infrastructure. It is on the AWS servers. It is on the AWS data centers, and we are just using that virtual server as for our purpose. We can use it as a web server, or as a load balancer or anything, right? So it is upon us how we are using it. So how you can go ahead and deploy EC2 instances basically, you will go to this portal, you will search for the EC2 instance like I did. You will go to launch instance and select launch instance. So I will be just demoing things, and if you want, you can try your hands on later on. And I've also added certain resources in the PPT that I will be sharing with you. So you can just go ahead with those resources and you can try your hands on. So this will just give you some idea about what the services are and how we can use those services. So if I go to the launch instance, I will get an option of choosing AMI, right? So what basically an AMI is basically whenever we have a bare metal, right? We install some operating system, and if you have used, Linux, like we have some image and we have some ISO file, and from that ISO file we deploy the operating system, right? So similarly, in this case, we are not using any ISO file. We are just using the AWS images, and here we can see a lots of images. But if you see, there are certain images which are labeled as free tier eligible, and when I say free tier eligible, it is basically you can go and you can choose this for even if you are in the free tier account. And I will just choose the first one. But you can, if you have a specific requirement, you can choose according to that. That I want CentOS or a Photon OS or anything, whatever your requirement is, you can choose for that. Here, if you see, there are certain types of the instances. So basically, these types of the instances are based on what you are actually going to use that instance for. My purpose is very clear. I'm just going to use for general purpose and nothing nothing compute extensive and all. But if you have a very compute extensive process, you can go for other type instance, which is somewhere down. That is I guess compute specific some family. So you can choose that whatever your requirement is according to that. I will just go with the general purpose one, and you can see the entire configurations here. So you can see what are the number of CPUs that I will get, what is the memory size that I will get, the internal storage, the everything, right? So network performance and everything you can see. IPv6 support is there or not. So these entire configurations you can see here. You can go to configure instance details. You will, okay, I've talked about like there is an option where you can specify, do you want to give a very specific subnet or IP or anything like that. So that specific requirement you can give here. If, right now, if you can see, everything is default, right? But if you want, you can specify your own, or you can just go to AWS and you can have your own new VPC, that is virtual private cloud. And when I say virtual private cloud, it is some kind of your own private cloud which is there on the public cloud, kind of have hybrid thing, right? So you can go, you can create your own VPC with your own subnet, your own IPs, and then you can put this instance inside that VPC. So this is one of the feature that you can use. There are certain options like, do you want to enable the monitoring, the other things. If you want anything, you can choose. If you don't want, you cannot. So yeah, so I will just keep that as default, and I will just go to add storage. So this is basically, you can whatever storage you are getting right now is 8 GBs, but if you want to add some extra storage, there is an option of that. You can go to add new volume, and you can add a new volume. If you think that this much of this much of storage is not enough, this much of then you can go and add more volumes, but it will again cost you some money if you're using additional volumes. So yeah, yeah, there is one concept of tagging in AWS. So basically, tagging is nothing but a key value pair. So that is basically used to identify resources that belong to, say, one group, or something similar to group. You can understand that. So basically, if I tagged one server as EC2 instance as it is a web server, so that is a kind of giving more information of what group it belongs. Okay, I will not use any tag. I will just go to, okay, configure security group. So security group is something that where here you can control. like what traffic you want, what inbound traffic you want on your EC2 instance, what outbound traffic you want on your EC2 instance, on which port you want, what service to run. So these are some kind of security that you can use here. Uh, I can just simply go to review and launch. And yeah, here if you see whatever configurations you have seen here, you can review them all. You have selected, you can review them all here, and then you can go to launch. It will ask you like what kind of uh, what kind of connection you want to make with the EC2 instance. When I say connection, there are basically three kinds of connections. So there is like something which you can use with the SSH. For that, you have to download the PEM file, and then you can normal SSH, like normal how a normal SSH work. You just SSH to the EC2 instance with its IP, and using a PEM file which has the keys, and then you can use that EC2 instance. But that would be a little lengthy here. The other options are proceed without a key pair. So basically, there is something called as session manager, right? So when I use a session manager, I don't actually need to use here. I have not used a session manager. I think I need to use that. For using a session manager, mm, yeah. So for using a session manager, what you need to do is basically here you need to create a one new role. If I can just go to create new IAM role, I will go to, okay, I already have this role here, so I can use it. So what this role is basically having is I can simply go and do a create. If I don't have, I'll have, but just for the sake of demoing, I'm just go doing. You can go to create role. You can choose a service. You can see, okay, what there's something known as simple session manager. Okay, and if I can see, yeah, so there's something called as Amazon EC2 role for SSL. So if I can just put that role, use that this policy for my role, what I will get is I will get the default session manager one that I can use. So what this session manager is doing is basically every logins to my instance will be recorded as one session. So I don't want my EC2 that anyone can come and log into my instance and they can do whatever they want. Even if anyone is logging to my EC2 instance, what I want is I can have a proper recorded session. So where I can see, okay, who has logged into my EC2 instance, what the things they can do. So this is the most best way of giving access to your EC2 instance is through a session manager. You can do it using SSH, but that would not be secure because you are not maintaining any session between who is accessing your EC2 instance and what things they are doing. So just for the sake of security, you can use this role which I have shown you that has simple session manager for EC2, and then you can go and you can say, okay, this is the role that I want to use. So I've selected this role and I can just go to, okay, I can see this, I can use this role here, right? So if I've chosen this IAM role, what this will basically do is I can log in through a session manager to my EC2 instance. So I will go review and launch. I will go to launch. Now I will choose that I don't need a key pair value because I'm logging through a session manager. So proceed without a key pair. I will do launch instances. This will take some time. So now you can go to EC2. You can go to instances. And here you can see, I think this is up now. So if you go click on this, you will see the entire configuration, whatever you have. So you can see the IAM role that you have selected for this, every configuration that you have selected. You can see it here, right? If I don't want to use it, I can go to, I can right click on it, and then I can go to something called as instance state, and I can either stop it or terminate it. So when I say stop it, there is a difference between stop and terminate, is because when you stop a EC2 instance, you can still take the snapshot of that instance. So you can still create, when it's a snapshot, is basically you are saving the state of that instance. So if you have stopped it, you can take the snapshot, you can create the image. So I have shown you like AMIs, right? So that those AMIs are provided by Amazon. Similarly, we can create our own AMIs. If I just right click on it, there is an option to create image. If I go to this option of creating image, I can create my own AMI there. So I can create my own AMI there. I will just need to give the image name, the image description, and all those configurations. I can then click on create image. So for the next times when I will go and for deploying an EC2, I will get an option in the right side. Sorry, in the left side only, you will see the option where there is like, do you want to use your own AMIs? There's my AMIs option. So if you go to my AMIs, you will see that, okay, you will see your images there, and then you can, for the next EC2 instance, you can use those images. And suppose I have installed some servers or like some, configuration over here like LAMP or something, and I want to keep that configuration in the other EC2 instances as well. So if I have deployed from my own created image, which I have taken from this EC2 instance, that will help me to get all those configurations there. And also there's something called as a, auto scaling group. I don't think I can demo it. I have already exceeded the time limit, so I am not going to demo the ESG, but I will just give you an overview. So basically, when you create the image, right, there is an option of adding that image to auto scaling group. If you see here, we will have this auto scaling groups here. So what this auto scaling groups does is, it basically scale your instance as per requirement. So you can give a minimum and a maximum, that for a minimum I want this much of instance to be running at any point of time, and the maximum number of instances that I want is this. So based on whatever traffic is coming to your EC2 instance, it will scale up and scale down automatically. So it is an auto scaling group. You don't need to do anything, you just need to create an auto scaling group here. You need to add the name, you need to add the template. So basically whatever, there is no such template available. So you can go to create a launch template. You can then put your image there, whatever image you have taken from that EC2 instance, you can give that image here, and you can give the name of that template. You can provide all this. Yeah, here you can see, right, AMI is required. So you can give, and if you go here, there is, you can see these are all AMIs by Amazon. But here I have an option of my AMIs also. Currently I have not created any image, so I cannot see any AMIs here. But if you would have created the image like the process shown you, you would have seen that option here inside my AMIs. You would have chosen that, and then you would have selected everything, every same kind of configurations are there, and you just go to create launch template. Once you have done the launching of the template, you can just go and you can just do a next. It will not do the next because I don't have it right now, but yeah, if you do the next, it will just give you some configurations like minimum number of instances that you want, maximum number of instances that you want. And so these are some of the functionalities that we can use along with an EC2 instance, just for having some more ease. Like we can have our own auto scaling group. We know that, okay, at any point of time I want two instances running, so that if one is down, I can switch over the traffic to the other one. Or if I want to like scale up and scale down, so everything is managed by these auto scaling groups. So you can see the level of flexibility that is this virtual server which is deployed in AWS is providing us. The second thing that I just want to show you is S3. Right, this is the first one was for compute. The second thing that we are looking is for the storage purpose. So S3 is simple storage, and simple storage is basically, it is an object level storage, so it is a block level storage, like a very simple, like the normal hard disk that we use, right? So it is similar to the normal hard disk that we use. No, you don't have to do anything, just go to create bucket, give a name, say okay, webinar, webinar test. And here specifying here, you need to make sure that that name is, unique. So if that is not unique, you will not be able to create that bucket, because that bucket is something that is associated with you, and the name has to be unique. So if you have any already created bucket, you can copy settings from an existing bucket. There is an option, but since I don't have any bucket here, I need to go to next. Okay, this name is already taken. Anything like this should work. Okay, yeah. So there is an option here. There is a versioning option. So basically, you may have, you may have been familiar with this if you know about Git, right? So Git is something that maintains the entire versioning thing for us. So here, similarly, if we want to have that kind of versioning in our S3, we can do that. We can, keep it unchecked, and it will do the versioning. So whenever we do the updates, it will be, stored as a separate version, and not so you can retrieve all the previous versions. Suppose I have uploaded a project in my S3, and I have done some kind of changes in my project, so you can see all those previous changes as well as your latest project code. So but I don't want any versioning here, so I will just keep all versions in the same bucket. And there's again a, you can use a key value pair here also, and just do the next. And I am just blocking all public access. If you want, you can even give public access to your S3, so that anyone can log into your S3 and can download things which you have put in that S3 bucket. So I will just go to create bucket. So this bucket is, I guess, created. If I can just go to this. Okay. Now I can see an option of uploading image here, right? I can go to upload, I can go to add files, I can choose, whatever thing I want to upload here. Say anything, anything I want to upload. Say this. I want to upload it here. So you can simply say this is uploaded. There's again, it is asking for like what are permissions you want. Do you want the read and write permission on it or not, or do you want to manage public permissions? So you can do everything. Then go to next. I will choose the standard, because if there is again a concept of, in there are other storage services in AWS. There is one storage service that I will talk about is Glacier. So Glacier is basically about storing the objects or the files or anything that you are not going to use very frequently, and you are going to use it or access it once in a while. So you are not going to use S3 for it, because S3 will cost you more money, and there is no purpose of storing those data which you are not accessing frequently in S3. Try to keep those data in Glacier. It is kind of an archive where you have all those, less frequently used data, like your backups and all. So you can put all of these in Glacier. It will cost you less money than what S3 is costing you. But currently, I'm just using the standard one, and I will go to upload. After uploading, I can see. Okay, yeah, I can see this. So if I go to this image, I have the options of permissions here, properties here, and if I just click on it, I have the option of downloading here. So similarly, if I've given it public access to this bucket, anyone else can also download this image. So that is how you can use S3. Okay, I will simply delete this for now because I don't need it. Okay, delete it. Okay. The other service that I want to discuss is something related to storage only, but it is a service that is like mostly used because CloudFront, right? So it is a content delivery network. So when I say content delivery network, I've talked to you about the edge locations and the kind of caching that edge location does. Similarly, if I am, say I am binge watching an episode on Netflix, right? So it is most probable that if I have, seen an episode for like half, I've half seen an episode, then I can resume from there, right? So this is the most probable action that I can do. So there's whenever there's a live, whatever application is doing the live streaming, what it does is it kinds of copies the content in multiple locations so that you never get issues in accessing those content. So it is kind of you're delivering the content over a network which has like lots of points where you are putting those contents so that those contents are easily available. So this entire content delivery network is managed by CloudFront in AWS, and this again just ask you for the S3 bucket. If I can just go to create distribution, this will say me get started. Okay, get started. It will ask you for the domain name from where you want to, access those content, and the attributes are there. Do you want some encryption or not, and other things. So there is like smooth streaming option which you can check if you want to have very smooth streaming. So it will decide on that those factors like how many repetitions of that content it is going to do. And you can, yeah, there's other options like do you want to compress those objects and other things. So you can do this entire you can just select whatever you want, whatever you seems like, okay, this is the option I'm going to use, and then you can go and do the create distribution option. There should be some option here for the, just a second, origin path. Okay, so this is the origin path. Right here you can specify basically what is the origin of your content. So here you can give this, my content is coming from this domain or this path, so that, and then they will take your content and they will kind of do the proper uh, you know mm, putting those contents at multiple locations so that you don't get any issues in streaming that. So that is one of the services that I just wanted to give an overview of, and we don't have much time left. I will just talk a little bit about RDS. Uh, Actually, we don't have any time left. We are exceeding the time, but it's okay. I also have to take a Q&A. Uh, So RDS is basically a relational database service. So similarly, we have a separate service for NoSQL also, that is no SQL databases, that is DynamoDB, right? So that is for specifically for NoSQL databases, and RDS is the one that is for the relational databases, that is SQL based databases. So if I can just go and do, there is one option like this option, restore from S3. So there is one concept of taking dump of your databases. So basically, whenever we have, say, I have my database in my local, and I want the same data to be there on one of my EC2 instance. What I can do is I can just do have the dump of that database. If that database is running in a container, that is more easily to get the dump of that. But even if it is not running in a container, you can easily get the dump of the database, and you can apply you can upload the dump in the S3, and then you can create a database from that dump. So you will get all those data there. Whatever you had in your local, you will have that in your RDS. That is one way of creating it. The other way is a very standard way. You go, you create the database, you select what database you want. By default, it is Amazon Aurora, but we don't want that. We can choose any other service we want. MySQL, we can choose that. We want Postgres, we can choose that. Oracle, MariaDB, lots of options are there. So you just need to go and you choose whatever vendor of database you want to use. You can choose the identifier, the name, the username and password. So I can give a password here, say something. Okay, you can select the database sizes. So basically, there are certain sizes, standard, memory optimized, and bustable classes. So whatever more feature is added, like if they are adding more optimization, they will cost you. It will cost you more money. So if you really want to, optimize the operations on your database, go for it. But if you just want to use it for a standard purpose, just go for the standard one. It again has this option of enable storage auto scaling. So even for database servers, we want to have like multiple database servers running. So if one of them is failed, we can switch over to other, or we can even have one separately database, one separate server just for the read-only operations. So these are the things that you can choose. Again, you can choose the VPC and other things. So yeah, here you can see some, what it is going to cost you. So you will see estimated monthly cost is going to be this much. So the database service is a little bit costly, but if you really want to use it, you can go for it. You put the entire configuration here, and you can just go and you will uh, using the right password. Let me try to create it. Okay, I can go to create database, and it will create a database for me, and then I will get one endpoint for that database and also one port number, right? So I can use that endpoint in any if I have the Postgres client installed on my local, I can simply in place where we are using the normal local host, right? When we are using the same server that is on our local host, we use local host to connect. In place of that local host, you can simply go and you can use that endpoint, and you can use that port number which is provided by AWS, and then you can use that database similarly as what we are how we are using the standard one which is in our local. So okay, till that time it is creating, I will just move to some questions. Okay, I don't see any
We
questions, so I
don't,
think
yeah, we don't have any more
people are,
questions in the groups.
yeah, people are very much clear now. So okay, it's still creating. Let me try to refresh it. Oh, it is still creating. I will just go and talk a little bit about the other two topics that I have, which is basically multi-cloud and containers, right? So multi-cloud is basically when we are talking about multi-cloud, it basically includes having multiple cloud vendors. So when it's a multiple cloud vendors, it can be multiple public cloud vendors. So suppose if I'm not liking the database service of AWS, I want to switch to Azure, I can do that. And if I'm not liking the server services of Azure, and want to use the server services from AWS, I can even do that. So it is basically you are using certain services from other vendor, and you are using the other services from some other vendor, but you are kind of getting everything in one control plane. So the visibility is one of the key point in multi-cloud, that everything, whatever you are using from whatever vendor, should be there in your control plane. You can see, okay, this service I'm using from this vendor, this I'm using from the other vendor. So and it can even include your private cloud. So it is a kind of combination of multiple public clouds as well as private cloud, but it might be misleading that what is the difference between public hybrid cloud and multi-cloud. So basically multi-cloud is a different concept. So here we are saying, okay, you don't like the services from AWS, go and use those services from Azure or GCP or some other cloud platform. And in hybrid cloud, it is basically the purpose of hybrid cloud is you don't want to segregate services between vendors. What you want is you want to use your private and public cloud from one, one management console, or from you just want to, do the summation of whatever you have in your public domain as well as your private model. So that is the key difference in multi-cloud. The goal is getting services from different vendors. In hybrid cloud, the goal is not like that. It is like, just doing the summation of my private and public data centers or the public resources. So that is a little bit about multi cloud. And talking about containers. So this is again a new a new technology that is coming up in the field of cloud computing. That instead of using virtual machines, simply using virtual machines, we can use virtual machines. But then again, on top of that virtual machine, we can use containers. So even if we are using a virtual machine, we are not doing the exact the 100% utilization of the hardware. So even if I have deployed two VMs on top of one operating system, it is not sure that I'm using those VMs every time and I'm doing the 100% utilization. What I can again do is I can use containers on top of that VMs. And what containers are like is basically it is very much similar to VMs, but it is very lightweight. And the whole purpose of having a container is you are kind of containing your application inside that. So when I say containing your application, the containers are very much application oriented, and you are putting one application inside one container, and all the libraries, all the dependencies with that are along with that application will get deployed inside that container. So when we talk about microservices, the containers are very much useful because in microservices architecture we have a separate a separate service running for each and every functionality that we have, like each and every separate independent functionalities that we have separate services running. So in that case, containers are very much useful because we can use containers for a separate service, and we can kind of orchestrate multiple containers together to have a common a common service. So yeah, that is pretty much about containers. When we talk about application modernization, it is something like we are switching from the legacy application to something that is new, to something that is more contemporary. So to something that is like earlier we used to have VMs, now we used to have containers. We are using Kubernetes to orchestrate the entire containers. We are using there is lots of changes in the frameworks, in the languages, and when we do these changes to make our applications more modern, to more make our applications more contemporary, we say that as application modernization. And containers play a very crucial role there because right now we are in most of the companies, either the companies have shifted to microservices or are shifting to microservices. So we are doing the entire modernization of the application, and the containers are playing a key role there. So that's it for this, and I think it is still creating. It will take time. Uh, so it has changed the status to modifying. I'm not sure if I can get the endpoints now. Yeah, so I've got the endpoint. So this is the endpoint I was talking about. This is the endpoint, this is the port number that I can use for connecting. I can have my own local client, and I can connect to this database, and I can use this database like a very normal database that we are all familiar with. So I think I've covered most of the key things. I'm going to delete this because I don't need it. Mm, okay. So I cannot delete it. It should be able to give me the delete option. Modify database in the server with protection. I will do that later. I will just take the questions if anyone has anything. Cloud is little overwhelming, but nice session. Thank you. Yeah, cloud is not overwhelming, but yeah, there are lots of things which comes associated with cloud computing. So yeah, it is something that you will not get in one day. But if you are really interested in that field, you can go and you can explore that field. You can see various options, various, and you can even choose a specific field inside cloud computing also that interests you more. Whether you are interested in what side of cloud computing, you can choose that. So yeah, do anyone has any more questions?
I think everyone is clear. There is one question.
Please tell what is the need of virtualization. Okay, so basically, I have told you, right? So the whatever you have seen in the session, right? I have created one EC2 instance. I cannot see where that instance is getting deployed. But do you think the AWS would be giving us one entire server for that instance? I don't think so, because just running one instance on one entire server will be very, 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 very less performance. It will be, giving very less performance. There will be lots of wastage of resources. So there is a concept of virtualization where we use one server, where we have one server, and we kind of have one software layer on top of that server, which helps us to deploy multiple machines on top of that server instead of just one. So that EC2 instance which you have seen here might be one VM which would have been running at some data center in US East, and in one server of that data center, and that might be even, and in that server itself there might be many other VMs running. So that is the key point of virtualization, and that is where the virtualization and cloud computing are kind of linked. But the cloud computing is more IT oriented concept. The virtualization is a little bit more technical. When you go deeper, you see that for providing cloud computing services, virtualization is kind of a key. For managing the entire data center, virtualization is a kind of key, because we are going to virtualize that data center into smaller machines, and then we can give that machines to specific users. So instead of you know just giving entire server to one user, we are again virtualizing that server into multiple smaller machines, and we are giving that because the server has a huge capacity, and normally I don't need that capacity. I normally don't need for like 128 GBs of RAM or things like that. So that is why the virtualization is there. You can start with any of them. You can start with AWS if you are clear with whatever I have shown you. You can go and do a hands-on. You can explore other services as well. There are lots of videos and lots of tutorials available. Even AWS has a very good docs. So one more thing that I wanted to show, and I know I'm very short of time. I'm actually very much more on time, but I just wanted to show one thing. That is AWS SDKs, right? So when I talk about SDKs, it is basically you're getting a complete software kit which has APIs in it, and you can use that APIs for interacting with your AWS. So if you are someone who is fascinated by automation and would like to write automation scripts, so you can use these APIs to interact with the AWS through your ports. So you don't need to actually go to your AWS console, and you don't need to manage things from that console. Instead, you can use this APIs here, and you can, if I see there for IoTs, there's everything. There are lots of other APIs here. I will go for not commanding tools. I will go for SDKs. I will go for Python, just for the sake of example. You can see here, right? If I just go to documentation, and getting started. Yeah. There should be some reference, code reference there. Should be there. Let me see. Okay. Um, this is simply showing you. I think let me just click on this. If I will get that. Hmm. So Boto 3 is basically a SDK, which is a library, a Python library. It has been went to get. How I don't know that. So Boto 3 is basically Python library that helps us to kind of interact with the AWS services through our own scripts. So we can write our Python scripts, and then in that Python scripts, there was somewhere proper code examples. Let me see. Hmm, no, I can get it here. Okay, here also if you can see, right, in this, right, if you have just imported this photo 3, if you know, if you're familiar with Python, you can understand that you can first install the photo 3 library, and then you can go and you can import that in your code, and you can do an iteration, right. If you have imported photo 3 in your code, you will get these methods, these functions there, and you can call those, these are all that you're getting from the photo 3. And if I can just show you, if you can just understand this piece of code, it is simply that you are getting all the EC2 instances. So for actually, that was I've added that link to the reference. If you can go from that reference, I think. Uh, let me see. This can go to tools. It is tools only. Python. I couldn't get that page which I was referring to. Mhm. No problem. You can just see the even you can get the both 3 code reference on Google. So if you can see Boto 3 code samples, if you can search this, right, you will get some code sample code where you have see, you can see, okay, this is what I was searching for, I guess. So if you see, there are like lots of options here. If I just go to Amazon S3 buckets, I can just do Amazon S3 buckets. You can see this. You can see the entire code sample code here. So you can see how you can create bucket just from the piece of code that you're using. Right? So this entire piece of code will help you that you can get a S3 bucket created from your code snippet. So it helps in lots of automation process that we do in the backend. So instead of going to the console every time, you can write, you can select the reason, you can do everything. Like you can select get the S3 client, and then you can do pretty much everything that you can do from the console, from the code itself. So this is a kind of an important thing, and a very interesting thing if you want to explore. Uh, yeah, that is one point I wanted to add. Is there any other questions? Yeah, do you people have any other questions? I will like wait for 2 more minutes. If you have any questions, you
There,
can ask.
there is one question in the chat. Is there
Yeah,
virtualization used in share web hosting?
yeah, it might be used, right? Whenever you see, no of the none of the vendor is going to give you a dedicated host completely when you have not opted for it, right? You will only get what you are paying for. So if you are paying for a shared hosting, obviously the same space is being used by some other customer out there. So obviously everything, everything that you see in the front end of the cloud, somewhere in the backend virtualization is the key. So they are using virtualization, either they are using virtualization or they are using some software that is doing the virtualization for them. So we have this, software defined data centers now. So we don't do everything from our side, we rather have softwares for doing those things. So yeah. Any more questions?
I think there are no more questions in the comments.
Yeah, so I think we can wrap up this session, and I will share the PPT with Arvind, so you can add that in the description or somewhere so that people can get
Yeah,
at least get the
I will,
references. Yeah,
I will add the
so
link for the PPT in the description so that you all
yeah.
can refer.
Yeah, so these are the reference section where you will get whatever I have discussed. You can get the references from different sites out there, and do try AWS. Do try using some of the AWS or any cloud vendor APIs. You will enjoy it, and try to write some scripts out of it. You will, definitely enjoy it. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for being such a patient listener. I have like extended this session too long, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for taking out this session and taking out time from your busy
Yeah,
schedule and giving us this informative knowledge. So, thank you, guys.
I
Now,
hope this is informative, and yeah, and you can get something out of it. Yeah,
yeah, we have
thank
got
you
to
all.
learn very much from. Yeah, so thank you, guys.
Yeah,
If you all want to join our community, you can join our WhatsApp group. The link for that is in the comment section description. And so now I think we should end this session.
yeah, we're good to go. Bye
Yes.
everyone. Thank you again.
Okay, so bye everyone. Thank you guys for joining. Now we are ending this live session.